All right, so I'm going to take a minute and do some notes over midpoint. All right, so midpoint is the middle of a line. So if you think about if you had two test grades, because we've got 2 points here. So if we had two test grades, 90 and 100, what would be the middle of those grades? So the middle here would be 95 because it's 5 from 90 and 5 down from 100. So that's what we're trying to find here is the middle of this line segment. Again, if I told you before, if you were on a number line, I'm just going to 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and maybe 8. Okay. And I said, what is the middle of this line? You would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's right here. It's in the middle. We could count it. Okay. However, when we look here, this is a slanted line. They're not on the same. The X's are not the same and the Y's are not the same. So that tells me they're not straight lines. They're slanted lines. And so because of that, I have to find the middle of my X and the middle of my Y. So the midpoint formula says, so what we also know this is as the average. If I were to average 90 and 100, I would say 90 plus 100 and then divide that by 2 because there are two values. And so then I would get 190 and I would divide that by 2 and that would give me 95. So mathematically, that's how to find the middle if we can't just count it. So the midpoint formula says the same thing. So I want you to write, we're going to add our X's here, and then we're going to divide by 2. That's going to give us the X part of the point, and then we're going to say Y1 plus Y2, and we're going to divide that by 2. That's going to give us the Y point. So when we get this point, that's going to be the middle of the line, okay? So when it's like this, I'm going to say -9 plus -2 and divide that by 2. And then I'm going to say 8 plus -1 and divide that by 2. All right, so you can do this 2 ways in your calculator. One gives you a decimal, one gives you a fraction. I'm good with either answer, okay, unless they tell you which one. So one is to put it in just like you see it with the fraction bar. So alpha y equals, and I'm going to hit number 1, and then I can say -9 plus -2 over 2, and that gives me -11 over 2. Now, we may not know where that is on the number line. So if I want a decimal, I can just hit -11 divided by 2, and that will give me -5.5. Okay. Now, the other way to do this is to just say -9 plus -2 and hit enter, and then divide that by 2, and that's automatically going to give you a decimal. So a lot of people find this way a lot easier. Okay. So then here, that's the X part. So then the Y part, I'm going to say 8 plus -1 and then divide that by 2, and that's going to be 3.5. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing over here, -6 plus, because I got to do my X's. Remember, X's are our first part of our coordinate. So X plus -2 divided by 2, and 4 plus -4 divided by 2. All right, so if I do that, I get -6 plus -2 divided by 2, and so that's going to be -4. And then I got to do the other side. Now, what is 4 minus 4? That's going to be 0. And 0 divided by anything is 0. So this is going to be 0 here. If you don't believe me, you can type it in, and 0 divided by anything is 0. Okay. So then the last one is going to be 9 plus -10 divided by 2, and it's always divided by 2 because we have 2 numbers. So when the average, you divide by how many there are. And then 5 plus 6 divided by 2. And so now I'm going to find the midpoint. Okay. All right. So then 9 plus -10 divided by 2 is going to be -0.5. And then 5 plus 6 divided by 2. Now you want to hit the enter if you're doing it this way first, because if you say 5 plus 6 divided by 2, it only divides the 6 by 2. So you want to hit 5 plus 6 and get that number and then divide it by 2. And then I get 5.5. Now, here is why we get this often confused, distance and midpoint confused. Distance, you're answering the question, how far is it? Like how far is the line? Like from here to here, how far is that? in midpoint, you're saying, okay, here is how far my line is. This is the center. You're trying to find the center of the line. So in distance, we subtract to answer how far. In midpoint, we add to find the average, because the average is to add them all and divide by how many there are. And that's the middle when there's two numbers, okay? So that's the explanation. The easiest way to do this is, if it's on a graph, is to write the points down. Okay, and so I'm going to take this point and name it. So this point is going to be at -3, -3. Remember, we go left 3, down 3, and that's why it's -3, -3. And then this side is at 2, 4. And again, you can do those in any order. If you did this one first and put 2, 4, and then -3, -3, it would not affect your answer, because you are going to add the x's. So -3 plus 2 divided by 2, and -3 plus 4 divided by 2. And so then I'm going to do those two things. So I'm going to say -3 plus 2, enter, divided by 2, and that's going to be -0.5. -3 plus 4, enter, divided by 2, and that's going to be 0.5. And so there is my point. Now, on a graph, I like it because you can check it. If I graph -1/2, that's negative here, and then +1/2, it puts my dot right there. Doesn't that look like it's in the middle? And so you can kind of check your answer that way by regraphing it if it's on a grid. All right, so here again, I'm going to write this one down, -4, -3. And then this one goes right 5 up 4. So right 5 up 4. And then I'm just going to, just like I did up here, I'm going to put them in my formula. -4 plus 5 divided by 2. And -3 plus 4 divided by 2. And then I'm going to do this. So -4 plus 5 divided by 2. And so that's 0.5. And -3 plus 4 divided by 2 is 0.5. Okay. So look here. If I graph 0.5 is halfway in a block, up halfway in a block, it's going to put that right there. That pretty much looks like the middle of that line. Okay. All right. And then the last one here for this set is, I'm going to name this one. So it goes right 3, down 1. So right 3, down 1 will be that. And then the next one is right 4, down 3. So right 4, down 3. Okay. So this just gets one step harder because you have to write them down. Okay. So then 3 plus 4, okay, divided by 2. And then -1 plus -3 divided by 2. And then let's see, 3 plus 4 divided by 2 is 3.5, or 3 1/2, or 7/2. There's all kinds of ways to write that. And then -1 plus -3, and then we divide that by 2. And so that would be negative. What did I just do? Whew. Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, so -40, yeah, -2. Oh, wait a minute. All right, so 3.5. So 3 1/2 would be here, and down 2. Now, I'm not requiring you to regraph them, but it's just a way for you to check to see if you're on the right track. And that does look like the middle. All right, so the game changes right here. So the key words here, it doesn't ask you to find the midpoint. It says find the other end point. And so when it says this, you're going to do exactly what I'm about to do, okay? So if it was this, I would have an endpoint divided by 2. So I'm going to say that endpoint, I don't have another endpoint. So endpoint plus my other endpoint, which is x, divided by 2 should get the midpoint of 8. And my y one, my endpoint plus the one I don't have, divided by 2 should get me 2. All right, so this is how we set this up. Because this time they're giving you the answer and you got to find the other one. Okay, so to do that, to solve this, remember we cross multiply. We did this in our equations unit. I promise you would see all your equations again. So 2 times 8 is 16. And so I'm going to move this down here because I don't really have room. Okay, so you can see it. So this becomes 3 plus x, because this under here is understood to be 1. And then 2 times 8 is 16. And now to solve for x, I just subtract 3. And so x will equal 13, because 16 minus 3 is 13. I'm going to do the same thing again over here. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2 plus y will equal 4. And then minus 2. And so y will equal 2. So my other endpoint, what it's asking for, my answer is 13, 2. And it has to be written in that order because it's X and then Y. You're telling me another point. Okay, you're telling me to go right 13 and up 2. If you turn it around, that's right 2 and up 13. That's 2 different places. So we have to make sure that it's in the right order or it'll be wrong. Okay, so here again, endpoint divided by 2. Well, I don't have 2 endpoints. So I'm going to say endpoint plus endpoint divided by 2. And that should equal the midpoint they gave me. Endpoint plus endpoint that I don't have divided by 2 should be -6. And then I just cross multiply. So 2 times 0 is 0. So 3 plus x equals 0. And again, the reason I don't go this way is this understood 1. And 1 times this won't change it. Okay. So then -3, -3, and x equals -3. Okay. Same thing here. 2 times -6, -8 plus y. That won't change. And that's going to become -12. So +8, and y equals -12 plus 8 is -4. So the correct way to write this is -3, -4. You're telling me where the other endpoint should be. All right, and then last but not least, I'm going to try to squeeze this one in here. So endpoint we have plus endpoint we don't have divided by 2 will equal 3. Endpoint we have plus endpoint we don't have divided by 2 will be -4. Okay, so this is how I set it up. And then I'm going to draw it over here. So I cross multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. So 1 plus x equals 6. 2 times -4, 7 plus y equals -8. Okay, and then solve. -1 minus 1. And so x equals 5. -7 minus 7. Now that's a -8. And a -8 and -7 is -15. If you're not sure, type it in exactly how you see it. -8 minus 7. -15. There we go. All right. Oh, I forgot. See, it's got to be a y there. All right. So when I write my answer, it's going to be 5, -15. And that's all the ways I'm going to ask you, things I'm going to ask you about midpoint. Okay. All right.